northern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rock, for the tree to drop. Here is a strange and bitter cry.
A flashback of the past. We're talking about lynching in Alabama. And now we're talking about having, in 2017, of course that goes back to the 30s, mind you. Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. My brother, Leroy Baylor.
Thank you.
And we're talking about, what's his first name? Sessions?
Sessions?
What's his first
The senator, or the former
name.
senator from Alabama?
What's his first name?
Sessions, maybe it's Jeff, I can't remember.
Jeff. Anyway, welcome to the show, and I just gave a preview of you youngsters that are not aware, Billie Holiday singing Strange Fruit, hanging from a tree. So you realize what that song is about. This era is coming back. That's the symbolism of Jeff Sessions and Alabama cracker, all right, a Klansman, and well known to be a racist, as Donald Trump and his father. We have other things to show you. But what do you think, what's the state of affairs for Black America?
Well, the story about Alabama, which I've never been to, is a very interesting one from the standpoint of media. I have in front of me a copy of the New York Times, December 13, 2016, and it happens to have a story dealing with Alabama. An Alabama prosecutor sets the penalties and fills the coffers, meaning they make money off of setting the penalties for bogus crimes or something that they cook up. And it's no money. Subhead is No Money, No Mercy. The article is written by Shyla Dewan, D-E-W-A-N. The headline, Alabama prosecutor sets the penalties and fills the coffers with criminal justice in one man's hands. Many pay daily. This is one story about Alabama. Another story about Alabama that the audience can look up is you put into Google 1,000 young black men falsely prosecuted in Alabama town, and they are still in jail. They were not, what you call, what Obama did at the end, exonerated. They still in jail in Alabama. In Alabama, that story was pursued by the Southern Poverty Center. Anyway, it's the guys. They're based in the South, and they track down different injustices around the country. But given that we are not on those panels that question these cabinet picks, since we're not a Winston, a brother Leroy, a brother Graham, the question about that town would not be asked.
Okay.
A question about this town in the article here in the December 16th issue of the New York Times is Dothan, D-O-T-H-A-N. And also I'm reminded of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's book, Fall of America. There's a chapter in there dealing with Alabama and Mississippi.
Wow.
And in that book, he talks about his understanding that there's still plantations where black people are enslaved. And they can't get off. They can't get out, armed guards and that sort of thing. So we are in a time, once again, going back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, back before 75 in the 60s, there were the headlines on Muhammad Speaks that did not, in my mind, speak to current events.
Okay.
One is the hidden truth. One is the bursting asunder.
Okay.
One is the manifestation of all defects. And as I look at current events, those headlines come back to mind. The hidden truth, for me, relates, this is talking about a headline in the Muhammad Speaks, not the final call. The hidden truth, for me, relates to the Hidden Figures, the movie.
Okay.
Plus, there's another lady in Arkansas that just came to our attention. Her name is Raye Montague, R-A-Y-E, Montague. So in Hidden Figures, you have these black women who help the astronauts go up and come back.
Right.
What they did, the women in Hidden Figures, what they did up in the sky, this black woman, Raye Montague, did in the ocean. Okay. She revolutionized the manufacture of boats and submarines. It's available, her interview is available on, you go into Google, you put in Raye, R-A-Y-E, Montague, interviewed by Arkansas TV station. And that little clip comes up. It's a great story. And she happens to have a genius running in her family because one of her sons is a PhD.
Oh, beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful.
So getting back to Trump and what's going on, the things what I was looking at on the phone is that he tweeted last night, because he tweets, that he would send in the federal troops into Chicago if the mayor of Chicago didn't bring the violence under control. And what's on the internet is, well, how could he do it, and blah, blah, blah.
He wasn't asked to come in there.
Well, this is what he tweeted.
Doesn't he have to be asked?
This is what he tweeted. He's doing today. We are witnessing
martial
something
law.
going. We're witnessing something that is beyond my pay scale in terms of exactly what it is. Is it martial law? Is it dictator? Is it fascism? Because some of the
All
stuff.
of the above.
Some of the stuff sounds good. Hey, bring automobile manufacturing back into the United States.
Yeah.
If you don't.
Oh, that was fabulous. He worked with the unions, but he steps on his own face. Go sit down.
I'm not denying that. So, one last thing about what Trump is proposing in Chicago is that Minister Farrakhan had forecast that for over a year. He said, now look, he said to the brothers, not the Muslim brothers, but the ones with the pop guns, he said, look, you got these pea shooters, you think that these guys are not going to react? He said, Trump will send in the troops and love doing that, to take
Yeah.
your blood.
Of course.
So the minister is on record as forecasting that. And so I'll shift back to you.
Well, I've heard tell that, welcome to the show, Graham
Sorry, I'm
Weatherspoon,
late.
our host. A few minutes late. But, well, I tell you what, I tell you what's really appropriate this time. I've been told that Trump is Illuminati. All right, well, here, I'm just something I found on the internet. Let's play this piece. He's forecast to be assassinated. Okay? Now, just watch this piece and we'll come right back at you. Play the next piece for you.
The Illuminati, the game of conspiracy card game that has supposedly predicted a number of events in recent history, has alluded to the assassination of Donald Trump. The card game, which was first released in 1982 but has been upgraded over the years, was inspired by a novel written in 1975. The card, titled Enough is Enough, is thought to depict an image similar to an angry-looking Donald Trump taken in 2011. It reads, "At any time, at any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day." In early November 2016, we saw Trump being rushed off stage at Reno in what was reported as an assassination attempt. A police source confirmed they had received a report that a gun was in the crowd, and a suspect has since been released. However, no weapon was found following further investigations. A number of individuals have been arrested who were allegedly planning to shoot and harm Trump. His rhetoric, which some consider borderline racist, has caused much anger and division in the United States. CNN was heavily criticized recently when they ran a report saying that a Democrat would be appointed as president if the Republican president and vice president were to be killed.
Just about every measure of America's security apparatus, including 28,000 law enforcement personnel, will be on the ground in Washington when President Obama hands off his office to Donald Trump on Friday. A near army in place to protect the leaders of all branches of government gathered in one place outside. And while officials stress there's no specific, credible threat to this inauguration, tonight, due to a quirk in America's rules for succession, questions remain about just who would be in charge if an attack hit the incoming president, vice president, and congressional leaders just as the transfer of power is underway.
Some claim that the Illuminati card game has predicted a number of events. One of the cards seemed to predict the death of Princess Diana 2 years before her tragic death in 1997. The card has an artist's interpretation of the princess in a tiara, surrounded by flashing cameras from the press. The description underneath says that she is immune to attacks by your rivals, peaceful or liberal groups, except for the media. Although it does not make a direct reference to her death, it does seem to allude to claims that the French press chasing a vehicle led to her untimely demise. Another surprising prediction seems to fit the BP oil spill in 2010. The card named Oil Spill shows a bird covered in thick black oil, which is oddly similar to the images of wildlife from the time of the ecological disaster. In these two cards, it shows what appears to be the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center and Pentagon. Other cards allude to events in politics, pop culture, and nuclear disasters. The idea that the Illuminati are coordinating the world's destiny has been the main focal point for the majority of conspiracy theorists. Only time will tell if this prediction in the card game will come true.
This kind of stuff you find on the internet, I thought that was interesting.
That's the kind of stuff that's out there.
Yeah. Well, what sort of, how can we gather something concrete from all this? Graham?
Well,
we're seeing the appointees to the cabinet in session right now. And it's interesting watching the interviews, or I should say the interrogations of some of these folks, and how they can lie bold-facedly. I believe that they are sent to school, and you'll see this on the news in different CNN and whatnot. They introduce them, they smile, they always have a pleasant demeanor, and they're never exhibiting any anger. There has to be a school that the Republicans go to.
Be cool.
And to be cool, yes, and be very nice and very polite.
Don't forget to smile.
The devil will smile in your face.
That's right.
And cut your throat. So I was looking at one of the fellas the other day. He's a doctor for Secretary of Health.
Pruitt.
Thank you. Now, he had shares in a company.
Yeah, Australian
which
company.
he bought
Right.
at an extremely reduced rate that the general public could not acquire. And he said he did everything legally and ethically, and that everything with him was an open book. They said, well, it's not that it's an open book. We did our homework. When you buy shares, there is a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Right.
And they noticed that the rate that he was being charged was different than the rate that the other people. That's like insider trading. We know a lady who's on television who went to jail for insider trading. You see. But this gentleman is touting that he did everything morally and ethically correct and within the statutes of the law.
And you might mention that he was promoting health programs in the Congress
That
to
would
promote
benefit.
this country,
See, and
this company. Rather.
this is what we have. We have for many years been electing and sending millionaires to represent us when they have no affinity to us. And when I say us, I'm talking about the general population, all right? But now you have a Congress which has a number of multi-millionaires in there, Democrats and Republicans, but the cabinet has gone from millionaires to billionaires. Trump had shares in that pipeline company
Yeah, XL.
that he just supposedly divested, but he says that pipeline is going through, and that pipeline is going to connect with the Colonial Pipeline, which runs right down to Houston, where our fuel comes through. No regard for the sacred lands of the indigenous people of the country. They will tout that the World Trade Center is a sacred site. They'll tout the hallowed halls of the U.S. Capitol, the White House, the Lincoln Memorial. But there is no regard for the indigenous people of this land who had their property and all mineral assets stolen from them. It is interesting, when I was in Hawaii, I went into Oahu, and, well, you've been to Oahu, and when you leave Honolulu and go over to Kaneohe on the other side of the island, you take Highway 3. Highway 3 has two exits, the one when you get on in Honolulu and the other exit when you get off in Kaneohe. Why? Because those are sacred lands. There were no exits, there were no those are sacred lands to the Hawaiians, and it's respected. There is no respect given to the indigenous people on the North American continent. And Donald Trump is making it very clear, even with the Chicago situation. They would have to invoke martial law.
Yeah, well, sending the troops, right.
And when they invoke martial law, constitutional law is suspended.
Oh, that's right.
It's suspended.
Well,
And this could be a test.
under what grounds can he declare martial law?
Well, the mayor has to call for federal
That's
troops
what I
to
was
come
saying.
in.
Right.
He has to call.
He
You
has
just,
to call.
You just can't put federal
right.
troops on the streets of a civilian population. It's not allowed.
So
Can't do that.
You made an announcement. He made a tweet last night. Leroy?
I'm listening. Yeah, the tweet.
The
Yeah.
tweet. That Graham wasn't here for that.
I heard you
Oh,
mention
right,
something about him.
Right. It's a tweet that he would send in send in the feds. That's how it's on the internet. If the violence wasn't brought under control.
Can't do that. And the Congress, this is where there is going to be a butting of heads, even with the Republicans in Congress.
Yeah.
This man seeks to bypass law and protocol with regard to everything he's doing. They were talking about the wall today. You know, oh, we're going to build this wall. Well, who's paying for it? Oh, well, we're going to build it and then we'll see about that later. What kind of stupidness is that? You're going to spend billions and billions of dollars to build a wall, quote unquote. The president of Mexico tell you there's no way in heaven or hell they're going to give you a dime for the wall.
Right.
And that money could be better spent going into infrastructure around the country. It could be better spent going into education or healthcare or a multiplicity of needs that people have in this country. A Republican, Latinos for Trump. I don't remember her name, but she was on television today. I saw her, and she was going off. You know, no, this you know, these people are coming in here illegally, and blah 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 blah. So, the drugs that are coming, we have drug dealers living here. We have drug dealers who are American citizens. We have methamphetamine and other drugs that are manufactured here. Yes, drugs do come in, and as reported and exposed by a detective from LA over 15 years ago, who said that yes, the CIA and the FBI were bringing drugs into Los Angeles to further afflict the people. Newt Gingrich, on a documentary I was watching, said, yeah, we knew that how the drugs would have an impact upon black people. FDR said that addressing the issue of marijuana and heroin in Harlem was not a concern of his because it only affected black people, or it only affected the Negro in the 1930s. So we're not asleep at the switch, but we need to be ever vigilant, and the congressmen and the senators, they're really going to have to keep a bridle on this megalomaniac that we have sitting in the White House right now. He will say anything that comes to his mind. Doesn't have to be truthful, doesn't have to be factual, doesn't have to be procedural. He's going to say the first thing that comes to his mind, and everybody's supposed to go lockstep with it. And the totalitarian agenda that he tried to put forward with regard to the press, just in how you saw how the guy in his press secretary went off a few days ago.
Yeah.
You see,
Saturday.
yeah, that is a bad indicator, because if his intention is not to talk to the press, he believes he can shut down the press
No, well,
and limit that constitutional right and safeguard. So this guy has some serious psychological issues going on within his own mind.
He's delusional. Everybody's coming to that conclusion.
Well, he's dangerous.
He's delusional.
And when you
He's a
have people
madman.
that will lockstep with whatever you say,
No, that can't happen.
that is the danger. His cabinet, some of his
It's
cabinet, not
too-
all of them,
With 4 million people coming out Saturday throughout the planet and rising up, this can't go but so far. He's going to step on his own ideas. He comes out with, you know, the rhetoric and he's doing all the right things. This first 4 days, it was beautiful. Then he stepped on himself by saying that 3 to 5 million people voted illegally.
His own attorney said, the White House attorney said,
He's
there's no truth to that statement. There's nothing to back
now
that
he come back
statement up.
today, to yesterday or today, saying that, well, now we're going to have an investigation. What about voter suppression, which we know is going on
Precisely.
for the last 8 years? The gerrymandering that happened from
Right here
2010.
in Harlem,
Okay,
the Harlem Congressional District
was gerrymandered.
runs up to Riverdale, New York.
Now,
I mean, that's, when I saw that, I went to the man's office 2.5 years ago because I wanted to know just what the balance of influence is, the Dominican part, you know, the Upper West Side,
Harlem.
and they didn't even know, they didn't even have a map in there showing the congressional
who
district.
sets that?
The guy that
No, but who's gerrymanders? Who's in charge of gerrymandering?
Gerrymandering
It's a state.
occurs with the state legislature when it's, but you.
In New York, that's Republican, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's negotiations that go on, and when I remember my recollection when I was a little boy, Adam Clayton Powell brought it to the community's attention that they were trying to gerrymander at that time the South Bronx into his district.
Okay.
At that time, the South Bronx was Italian and Irish. It was not Puerto Rican.
Okay.
And they was running a guy named Santangelo or something like that. When Adam brought it to the attention, they squashed that because they were trying to get Adam, you know.
Right.
And so if the politicians are the first ones who know about gerrymandering do not bring that to our attention, I mean, how could Harlem? This is why they can say Harlem is so much percent white, so much percent black now. But if you, because they have gerrymandered Harlem to West Side Broadway going downtown and all the way up to Riverdale, New York, Van Cortlandt Park. That's, so here's the thing, look, my leader and teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, has told us about politics, and others have parlayed politics into politricks. That's our brothers from Jamaica, the island of Jamaica, politricks. And when we were coming up in the 60s, we were told that what we had to do was register to vote and things would be changed.
Right.
Now we know that you got to donate. You got to put some money up. Now, when we began to put some money up, then they made corporations an individual. There's no way you're going to beat that. The corporations are putting money into the pot that comes from us, the consumers. Or money laundered from the drug trade. We didn't even talk about that piece.
That's another thing.
All right? But the bottom line is this, in my opinion, that black people have to take a step back and begin to say, what are we going to do about organizing ourselves in order to save our people? Because if he makes a move into Chicago, or at least puts it out there, there are others who are like him will bring that up in other locales.
Law and order.
Law and order, stop and frisk, there ain't nothing wrong with that, and blah, 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 blah.
Well, de Blasio has promised it won't come back here.
Chicago is going to be the test ground. You see, what they do, what politicians do, they throw something out, throw some crazy idea out, and like they say, throw it on the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
If they can get away with that in Chicago, that'll be coming to your local area before you know it. They will try it. If they can get away with it, they'll do it. And the last thing you want is federal troops. The last time we had federal troops,
Eisenhower, huh?
Eisenhower.
Right.
School desegregation.
54.
All right? And troops have been called in following some of the riots in Newark, and in the 60s we had federal troops. But that's not where Chicago is. But today, a guy sent me a text. The NRA is backing a bill to allow Americans with valid pistol permits to go state to state wherever they want to go with their weapons. All right?
Wow.
So
militia?
you have the danger in that now. You have these stand your ground psychos out here. You have all these Okies running around with their guns. They come to New York. They go to New Jersey, Massachusetts. They're walking around with the mindset that they have.
A racist mind.
All right? And they're shooting people. And just imagine it. They're in a different state, and different laws apply as you go from state to state. You can't carry certain types of ammunition in certain states. All right? I carry throughout the U.S. I have that federal coverage. But for pistol permit carriers, non-military personnel, non-law enforcement, to be going from state to state carrying a weapon, that's going to turn into another nightmare.
So we have Trayvon Martin all over
You'll
again?
have that time and
All
time
over
again.
the place?
There's another
Wannabe cops?
There's another Trayvon Martin, so to speak, that took place in Georgia last week. Did you hear about that?
No.
The lady, I was just trying to bring it up. She's in a house. She shot at a group of young boys, hit one in the head. At that time, he was alive last week. This Caucasian woman.
Wait, she's in her house?
She's in her house.
Where are the
They're out
boys?
on the street, passing by. That's their story. She said that they were throwing rocks at her home, and she shot him in the head. Shot the boy in the head. So there are things that are happening around the country. This is it. White woman who once complained about bad blacks is arrested after shooting an African-American teen in the head as he walked by her house. And that's in Macon, Georgia.
Oh.
Macon. Okay.
Former nurse is accused of shooting 15-year-old. So things are happening. This happened, see, this is on a particular website, but things are happening, and we also are lacking black news media, and we as a people must support the black papers, the black magazines. It doesn't even matter that if there are three of us, he can buy one paper, I buy this, and we trade notes. We don't have to buy all the same thing, but we need to be supporting that media that gets information to our people. There's a lot of sources on the internet, but for local and other issues, we got to support black media, because black media is so important that they make efforts to suppress it, even without us not buying it.
More than half of the black publications in the United States went out of business in the last 10 years.
In the last 10. With a black president.
And before he got in office, they were dying. And you got to look at it. You know, our people will pick up the Daily News, the Post, and the first thing they do, they turn to the sports page. Or they're looking to see what the number was. You know.
Well, you know, the internet has a lot to do with that.
Well, it has, but the fact that people are not reading, they would rather support.
They'd rather go on Facebook.
They'd rather support the Daily News or the Post and pick up the Amsterdam News one day a week. It doesn't come out every day, it's one day, or any other publication that's out there. The papers will sit on the stand and they don't move. But they'll buy the other papers. When Murdoch was the one, he described President Obama as a monkey, as a gorilla.
That was a cartoon.
Right, and that guy is not even an American. He's from Canada, all right? They allowed him, Australia,
yeah.
allowed him to come here and run his media operation contrary to federal law, and he was given that go-ahead from Colin Powell's son, who was the secretary of whatever at that time that oversaw that.
And so, Ted Kennedy was involved in that too. Ted Kennedy was a key element in the Senate paving the way for that.
For Murdoch.
For the merger?
No, it wasn't a merger. It was multiple ownership.
They didn't allow foreign
That's what
foreigners to control media enterprises in the United States.
Right.
And that's just like saying, well, Trump is now tied in business-wise with Putin or this one or that one and this.
Well, the leasee for the World Trade Center, what's his name? Silverstein?
Silverstein. That was a crooked.
He's from Australia.
That was a crooked setup there.
He's from Australia.
That was a crooked setup there.
All right.
We have the capacity. I mean, we should look at what's going on and analyze it from the standpoint of what impact it makes or possibly makes on our people. We have to take that position. We must take that position, otherwise we're going to be caught off guard. Our situation in this city is so basic that you have high school students, middle school black students who are smart or bright, but they're not being educated. They do not know geography. I was with some students, boy didn't know where Mexico was. I asked him, I was going through a session in terms of who are you, to get them into getting into their family, you know, where's your father from, where's your mother from. So I sent them home to get this information, then come back to the group and present anything that wasn't personal, all right? Don't want no personal stuff. So boy gave a presentation. He's about 14, maybe 16, 14. He gives the presentation, and where's your mom and dad from? He said, I said, where are they from? South America, Central America, the Caribbean? He said, South America. I said, what country? I said, what country? He said, Georgia. So I said, Georgia? I said, Georgia is a southern. It's not funny, because the audience out there, the reason I'm sharing this is for black folks in the audience to begin to interact with their children, begin to interact with their grandchildren. He did not know that there's a Central America. He did not know that there's a South America. He did not know these things, even though he had been on cruises. That came out later in the, but they had been on cruises but didn't know where they had been.
How unusual is that?
Well, I have 5 youngsters in the group, and each one goes to a different school.
Okay.
I have a grandson who is upstate New York, in the suburbs. He has not been given a book report or an essay to do. He said, we get that in our senior year. I said, they're not educating you, son. It's a game that's being run on everybody. It's the dumbing down of America, but we're the most endangered victims of that.
We catch the hell.
So what I'm saying, the Trump thing is stuff that we got to watch, but the house is burning. And we got to do something to save our people. And there are folks in the audience who say, well, save everybody.
Everybody doesn't even want to be saved.
There are folks out there who still know. There's that old saying, a poor Caucasian could say, at least I'm not a nigger.
It's coming back.
And
I think that's what propelled Trump into the White House.
it sounded good to a group of people that he appealed to, but they're a very dangerous group of people to him because they ain't playing.
Right.
Next session is Black History Month. I'm going to give you a preview of, we were talking about blacks in the media. I have my hero, Gil Noble. Let's play that piece on Gil Noble and give us a little relief from trauma.
I got myself a job, and 2 years, a year after Malcolm was struck down at WLIB in Harlem, and then 2 years later, I was hired by Channel 7, not because of my skills, but because of the political pressure of the time.
Of the 60s.
Oh, there's no question. Because there were no people of color who were reporting, and the top story was us. And so these white reporters would be coming to Harlem, and the community began to say, get out of here.
That's right.
Don't come up here anymore because you're not doing anything but lying, you know.
So you were able to...
So I found myself employed. My first week at ABC, my first major assignment was the so-called riots in Newark. That was my baptism of fire, and I landed a permanent job. And then in '68, when Dr. King was struck down, a collective mantle of guilt fell over the United States, and a lot of things began to open up. And the local stations all decided that they were going to do what they had never done before and have a black program. So Channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13 all came up with one black program, and Like It Is was it for Channel 7. and I was there, so I sort of straddled and did news reporting and weekend anchor, and I was also the co-host of Like It Is, still produced by whites.
Yes.
Written and produced by white people. But the host was Robert Hooks, the actor.
Isn't that something?
And I was the heavy. But then he got an offer to do NYPD 6 months later. He recommended that I succeed him as the host. Well, they were shaky about me because I didn't have visibility or anything. So they were about a year. There was a year where we had a number of co-hosts. I had a number of co-hosts. Melba Tolliver, Geraldo Rivera was a co-host and whatnot. And then finally they went their separate ways and I was there alone. But it still wasn't enough because I wanted to have more editorial say. And even though Like It Is was an improvement, I was hungry for more because my head was filled with what I had learned up in Harlem. And wouldn't you know it, but I eventually became the producer in 1975. And then I had what every journalist fantasizes about, and that is an opportunity to tell his or her own story based on their perspective. And that resonates with me today. I got some email this morning about a program we had on yesterday. And one of the viewers said, why don't you tell the other story? You know, why you always just tell one side? This is the other side.
Yes.
You know? But it's the socialization of this country. And so Like It Is has tried to do that, to tell the other side. This is the antidote. We're on 1 hour a week, and the 167 hours a week, and the rest of the broadcast week is all coming out of a white psyche.
Is there another program like It Is on television anywhere in the United States that is affiliated with a major network?
No, not that I'm aware of. This is it. And over the life of the program, we have the largest collection of moving picture images about our story on the planet. It's something I'm very proud to have been the doorman.
Thank you for that.
I'm proud to say that here at the Gilchrist Experience, we try to carry on the legacy of Gil Noble. I'm proud to say that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Gil. I mean, I've had Gil on his show 2-3 times, and I'm in awe of anything he does, anything he says. So for Black History Month, we're going to do the first show on Gil Noble, February 1st.
That's excellent, brother. This is so refreshing. We know the brother's gone, and when you see this, you know how much we miss him.
Yes.
Because he stayed on his post.
That's right.
Until he couldn't be on his post because he knew that he would not be followed by another Gil Noble.
That's right.
Or someone superior, male or female. He knew what that environment is. And we have to salute that brother and put an idea out there as I was watching. I said, we need, even if it's a one time, we need a Gil Noble Scholarship Award that's given at a church. It doesn't have to be citywide. It's for that church to say, we got a Gil Noble Award for the top students who are coming out of here, going to college or going to high school. Because we have this, what you just did keeps that man alive.
That's my man.
And
that was my
I
man.
mean, just a beautiful person, brother.
Yeah.
He was, I was honored to have been on his show once with the late Judge Cut 'em Loose, Bruce Wright. And we had a great time there together. Judge Wright and I, this was following the murder of Amadou Diallo. And it was ironic, we were in the studio and the Bronx DA walked in, Robert Johnson, but he would not come on air with us.
Wow.
And I said to him, I said, listen, brother, I'm not going to tear you apart on national television, but you've done a great disservice to the county of the Bronx and to the family of Amadou Diallo. You've done a great disservice. So he came on later after Judge Wright and I discussed. Yes. But he mentioned Melba Tolliver, another pioneer, first black woman to do the news in New York City. And Melba had a background, she had a nursing degree, if I remember correctly. And Melba is still in media out on Long Island.
Is she?
She is, yes. I did some research on her recently. And maybe
How
we
old
can
is
see
she
if we
now?
can go out there and see her or have her come in.
Yeah.
But
that'd be
when Melba
beautiful.
decided to wear her afro
Still?
on national television,
Oh, back then.
that became the problem.
Yeah.
And she wasn't going to acquiesce and straighten her hair again. And ultimately, it led to her being moved from the studio to different assignments, and then ultimately, you know, she left ABC.
Well, we were talking about black programming. Well, this, what Gil was talking about, that was the beginning of affirmative action. I mean, you and I both benefited from that.
Yes.
I got a job at a Southern Southern company, textile company, in 70, 2 years after Martin died. And I was in affirmative action. I walked in there as trying to sell them computers, and they thought I was so alive and not afraid of them, you know, because I'd been around Southerners. It didn't bother me. And I was a New Yorker, and I was clean and very presentable, and they took me on as the only black in a $500 million company back then. Textiles, did polyester, rayon, and nylon. 535th Avenue, 43rd Street and 5th.
That's right in Midtown,
Yeah, I was right there for 8 years, right there on 5th Avenue.
I had.
But that was part of, you know, you had a similar exposure.
I was just counting while you were talking. I had six affirmative action.
Six.
I had six.
Are you Jamaican?
No, hey,
6
listen,
at one time? Or?
I tell you, I have a son. I said that's my West Indian son. He will always be working. He will. Always, but I had six. I went in this position. I moved up, and there was a brother, Richard Clark, Richard Clark Associates.
Yeah, I remember
Richard Clark
that.
was a headhunter.
I remember that. I remember Richard Clark.
With an E on the end.
Clark with an E on the end. A great guy, and his family should know that he got a lot of black men, a lot of black women into positions that they otherwise would not, because he would size you up, make sure that you were the right product for the right place. Richard Clark Associates, good brother, wonderful brother.
But you had to be presentable and have some swag about yourself and not be afraid. But those opportunities don't exist today. Now we're fighting against, oh, man, after a black president, a wise guy.
Oh, well.
A real con man.
Charlatan.
Charlatan.
Look, Winston, our journey as affirmative action folks who supposedly weren't supposed to be in those positions.
Right.
Because that's how they portray affirmative action, hiring people who weren't qualified. But every position we got into, we found that the people who were running the situation were not qualified, that they had less expertise, and they had fear, they couldn't present. And what I'm saying is this, is not that, but this. We have demonstrated to ourselves that we can do things that we aren't doing yet. And in light of Trump, we're going to have to get very busy and begin to do things for ourselves. It's that time of day.
Okay.
In my estimation. Minister Farrakhan has been pushing that. He said, hey man, he said, I'm telling you guys in Chicago that if you don't stop killing one another, they'll be happy to come in and take your blood.
There you go. We got to get along in those times. So is Donald Trump I mean, a lot of people are happy to see Donald Trump in his position. They're saying now black people have to stick together.
Well, it's
Do you
not.
know any
It's,
other
it's not so much that that from my end, it's not so much happy. You see, because
Relieved.
he could mean death to a whole lot of people on the happy side and unhappy side. The ones who just don't know what's going on, and the ones who have an idea of what's going on.
Black and white.
Black and white, black, brown.
Well, how about this instance where he started talking about taking Iran's oil?
Take the oil.
We might get a
Minister
chance to go
Farrakhan,
back in there.
he talked
now he's
about-
putting the troops in jeopardy.
Wait a minute. The guy he introduced, Tillerson.
Tillerson.
He introduced him. It's
Exxon
on.
man.
It's on video. He introduced the guy and said, "Hey."
Oh, that's right. I saw that.
You saw that?
I saw that.
Say, hey, he goes in
in
the
there
country,
and
takes oil, and goes to the next place.
And what African country was he in where?
Nigeria has
No,
oil.
not Nigeria.
Shell was killing Nigerians.
There's a Chad. Wasn't it Chad? He went into Chad and supplied
Tillerson?
Tillerson.
That I don't know.
He took Exxon into Chad, I think it was.
There's oil, the richest continent in the world.
And they were persecuting their people, and he was giving $500 million a year. And instead of socializing the country, it's a small country, they just took the, which happens to most of these African countries when they get a deal, make a deal with an oil company such as Exxon.
What's the brother, Perkins?
Bill?
Economic hitman. That's explained in the book, The Economic Hitman, John Perkins.
Okay.
That whole scenario of how they go in and how they get a country indebted to them, how they get people to go along.
How is it that he would say things like this? I mean, that's why I say he's a delusional. Something's not right.
I was reading about Trump's father and grandfather.
Oh. Yeah, I
Trump's
have another piece on that.
patrilineal, his father's father was German.
Right.
He left Germany and went into the Klondike in Canada during the gold rush in Canada.
Right.
He set up what they called a hotel, but it was a
Whorehouse.
brothel. It was a whorehouse
Yeah,
where even children imbibe not only in liquor but in sex. He made $500,000
At that time.
at that time back in 1895 or 1898. Then he went back to Germany. The German government didn't know he had left the country because he had to have permission to leave. And when he came back, he did not want to serve in the army. So they expatriated him and exiled him and told him to get out. He didn't want to leave. And he sent a letter requesting that some official of the government, it was in the article I was reading, and he was a friend, but he told him, no, you got to go. You left, you made money, you came back, you don't want to serve the country, you don't want to serve the motherland, get out. So he left and he came to the United States. On the way here, on the ship, Trump's father was born on the ship, or soon after he got here, one or the other, but his mother was expecting at the time that they took the voyage back across to the United States. And Trump has a sister who is, I haven't gotten the background on
She's
her.
a judge, though.
She's something.
She's a judge. She's a judge.
She's a judge, okay. But here is a guy, the sexual deviancy that was mentioned with regard to him, you follow that bloodline back to the grandfather. Dangerous individual. But, not just Trump. Let's go back to the previous election when Cain was running. Remember Cain, the black guy, the pizza guy and everything?
Oh, yeah, Godfather.
And a white woman, white women alleged that he had groped their crotches in his car.
Yeah.
And what really shook me was not just the fact that he did it, but white politicians did not even respond to that, which should have sent a message to white women across the country. When Emmett Till could have been murdered for whistling at a white woman, this guy, Cain, is groping white women, and white men don't even respond to the
Well,
allegations.
he's a Republican. He was
But
a
he's
Republican.
running for president. But you see where we've come from from 1955 to 2009. So women need to really assess what is going on and who these men are in your government, because they exhibit a total disdain and disregard for women across the board.
We might bring attention to the fact that on Saturday, we had 4 million people protesting Trump. Basically, the Women's March. I mean, that was a phenomenal to see. I mean, this is. I think we're just being exposed to Trump to get our act together. I mean, thoroughly
Amen.
act together.
Amen.
I mean, they abused a fair-minded individual that was half black and half white, who I always said he was a blessing from God, as far as I was concerned, because of the fact that he was half black and half white. And he tried to be fair. Oh, that's all he tried to do. He tried to be fair. And on both sides, they were knocking him, from all sides. And now, because we abuse this fair-minded person, we're stuck with a wise guy.
There you go.
A thug. I call him a white nigger. I mean, if you really want to hear it. I mean, nigger meaning lowlife. Meaning lowlife. I mean, that's what he is. I mean, that's my use of the word, okay? But, I mean, it sounds funny, but it's real.
Can I plug the Diallo?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We have 10 minutes.
Next Saturday, the 4th, the Amadou Diallo Foundation is holding their second annual scholarship dinner at the Alhambra Ballroom on 126th and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard across from the Harlem State Office Building. And we will be honoring Reverend Al Sharpton, Congressman Rangel, and also, who was our third, who else? David M. Dinkins. David M. Dinkins. And the keynote speaker will be Dr. Steve Perry, head of the Capitol Preparatory School. And also we will have with us rapper Josh Siri X. He will be coming in and performing.
Well, we can talk more about it next week.
Yes, so that'll be,
right?
so for tickets, just quickly call 201-774-2818.
You should have put that and plugged it. Thank you for coming. The God in me loves the God in you, and stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience. And God bless Gil Noble. I stay here and proud to say, power to the people. Amen.
Amen.